Hi, this is Brent Finnamore. Thanks for joining me. I have a company called the Finnamore Group. We do enterprise performance solutions for our clients, helping them sell more, serve better, and spend less. You can go to my website at thefinamoregroup.com for more insights, podcasts, blogs, articles, and lots more. This mini course is about how to overcome resistance and gain agreement. I mean, we all need this, don't we, in our work? Probably communication is more than 75% of getting things done. It's not just technical skills, but it's our ability to change minds and win others to our opinion and get their active, committed support. To do that, I want to introduce you to the 4A model. It's a simple path to help you overcome resistance and gain agreement. I mean, the moment you try to make something happen, along come the yeah buts, right? Ever encounter those? Of course you have, every day. Every time you try to present an idea, you'll hear, yeah, but it's too expensive. Yeah, but we don't have the resources. Yeah, but the timing's wrong. We'll never get approval. My calendar's full. We get objections. We get resistance. We get pushback. How do we deal with that? It helps to think of resistance as the normal, natural process of others coming to agree with your excellent idea. Or it could be that your idea sucks and they're trying to teach you that fact. But if your idea is sound, then there is a path to overcoming resistance and gaining agreement, and I want to show it to you. But it starts with not being defensive and not taking objections or resistance as a combative perspective, but rather a process that the other person needs to go through as they come to agree with your great idea. But why bother? Why not just ram it down their throats? Commitment means I'm all in. I'll innovate. I'll go above and beyond to make it happen. Genuine compliance means it's almost as good. It means I'll do what you need me to do. I'm a good soldier. I'm in. Grudging compliance means I will do the minimum I have to do. I don't like it, but I'll do it in order to not get fired or not be disapproved of, but I'm not happy. And then there's non-compliance. Not going to do it. So commitment and genuine compliance imply that you have the other person's full support when you get their agreement. Grudging compliance and non-compliance involve problematic support or non-support, and it leads to problems down the road. So if you're forcing or overpowering or threatening or coercing people to agree with you or to go with your plan of action, you're going to have problems down the road getting their help, getting their commitment, getting their compliance. But if you're respectfully gaining agreement, that's the key. Respectfully gaining agreement leads to genuine compliance and commitment, and you'll need that if you need their help and support. Before we begin with this model and this approach, we need to understand that it's important to seek first to understand. It's tempting to jump in when you first hear an objection and eagerly state your counter-argument. But when you do that, you're often saying things that aren't relevant to the other person's concerns. They're thinking to themselves, you're not even hearing me. No, that's not what I meant. That wasn't my point. That's called being a pest. You don't want to be a pest. It hurts trust. It hurts the relationship. Instead, when they make an objection or they have a problem with what you're saying and you want to be clear and you're not sure if you're clear, ask, what do you mean? And get more information. Or can I ask why you say that and get more insight? This step is so fundamental, it's not even part of the model. It's essential in all interactions and all communication to make sure you first understand what someone has said before you reply. But it bears reminding here before we begin. Now, once you do understand their objection, their concern, their resistance, there is a path. That path is agree, assess, assure, action. 4 A's. Agree means agree with or acknowledge some aspect of their statement when they make it. Then, assess the presence of emotion and the strength of opinion. Then, assure them using a strategy appropriate to your assessment, and then ask for an action to gain momentum and seal their commitment. Let's look at agreeing. Always begin with agreement. Beginning with some form of agreement disarms them and makes them more receptive to your counterpoint. When you begin with disagreement, it triggers defensiveness and they become deaf. They can't hear you because you're disagreeing, you're arguing, and that's all they hear. He doesn't agree. She doesn't believe what I said. They're discrediting me. And when that happens, people actually become more committed to their objection, not less. So you lose. Never force the other person to become more committed to their objection. Instead, begin with agreement. But you say to yourself, well, but I don't agree with anything they just said. Well, here's the trick. Don't agree with their entire statement. Just agree with part of it. Here's an example. Someone says the earth is flat. Okay, now that's a pretty shocking statement to make. Someone says that, and you might immediately strongly disagree. So how in the world could you begin with agreement? Because what happens is we're busy being offended or shocked by the audacity or outrageousness of the comment. We forget to try to find some way to create rapport. If someone says the earth is flat, how could you begin with agreement? I agree that you're a complete bozo? No, no. How about this? The earth is flat. Well, I agree it certainly looks flat, and certainly it's true that a map is flat. Begin with agreement. Here's another one. Cats are the same as dogs. No, they're not. That's wrong. Incorrect. See, that won't work. That's a wrong footing to start on. Instead, find some way to agree first. Well, you're right. They do have a lot in common. They both have 4 legs. They both have ears. They both have whiskers. They both make good pets. Begin with agreement. Then they can hear you. It's too expensive. I agree it's an investment. It's too expensive. Yes, most things are these days, it seems. Here's a couple of other examples. Yeah, but it's usually not a problem. That's a good point. It's usually not. But those times when it is a problem, it sure creates a lot of extra cost and work, doesn't it? Here's another one. I just really don't think we need this. Yeah, I thought the same thing. Then I saw what our competitors are doing and realized we're behind. Or this one. The team won't buy in. You could very well be right. Sounds like our objective then is to create a compelling case. Would you agree? So begin with agreement. Then they can hear you. The next thing to do is assess, the next A. Now, your response to resistance from another person has to reflect their resistance type. So we got to figure that out. So as you're conversing with them and listening and exchanging and trying to understand, pay close attention to their current state by assessing 2 things. Number 1, the presence of emotion. And number 2, the strength of their opinion. And that assessment will inform your approach to assuring them, which will come a little later. So here's how it works. We have presence of emotion and we have strength of opinion. So we can have strong emotion or little or no emotion. And we can have a surface agreement or a deeply held belief. Let me give you a couple of general examples so you know what I'm talking about. Here's an example of little or no emotion and a surface agreement. Someone says, it seems a little expensive. Or they might say, I'm not sure we have time for this solution. Now, notice that there's no strong emotion there. Also notice this isn't a deep intellectual opposition, especially when you see it compared to the others in a minute. How about someone with a surface agreement, but strong emotion? What does strong emotion look like with a very surface agreement, a surface argument? It looks like this. Well, I, for one, won't support this. Well, I think it's a very bad idea. Notice how there's no detail. Notice how there's no strong intellectual argument. It's a surface argument. But notice how strong the emotion is. Well, we're going to deal with people in this quadrant differently than we deal with the people in that first quadrant. And it's important to know where they are so you know where to go to meet them. All right, let's look at the next one. We have little or no emotion, but a deeply held belief. It could look like this. You know, this has been tried before and it didn't work. In fact, I've seen research that proves it. So again, not a lot of strong emotion, but a very strong intellectual disagreement, even referenced by research. Then we might have someone who has strong emotion and a deeply held belief. This goes against everything we believe in. Plus, these change initiatives always backfire. In fact, studies show, so there you have a lot of emotion, very strong wording. Then you also have evidence of a deeply held belief. So as we assess, we're looking for 4 different types of resistance and which one is the other person. And based on which one they are, it's going to affect the dynamics of our conversation. And so now let me show you just generally some patterns. Of course, in this quadrant, we have light resistance, little or no emotion, and a very surface agreement, relatively straightforward approach. In the next 2, we have moderate resistance. And of course, in the last quadrant, we have heavy resistance. Now, I want to introduce to you this quadrant, this first quadrant I showed you before. This is called the opportunity box. I call it that because this is where you have the opportunity to change their minds and win their agreement. You have the opportunity because they are receptive and not defensive. They're not defensive emotionally, and they're not defensive intellectually. What we got to do is get all the other boxes into that one, get them into that box so that we can then state our final counter argument and win their agreement. That'll be our goal. And that's going to take one conversation in the opportunity box. In the other 2 boxes, it'll take a few conversations. And in the 4th box, it's going to take several. So you start to get a sense that something, your idea, your proposal, has to be quite important to you, and their commitment or genuine compliance has to be quite critical before you're going to want to invest this much conversation. So here we have type 1, surface intellectual argument and little or no emotion. Then we have type 2, strong emotion and a surface argument. Type 3, a strong intellectual argument, but not much emotion. And finally, type 4, strong emotion and strong intellectual argument. So, as we look at assuring, let's start that we've assessed, we've agreed, and we've assessed. Now we're on assure. So, type 1, well, this is pretty straightforward. They're already in the opportunity box, so you can persuade them with facts, because remember, they're open and receptive. They're not defensive. So state your counter-argument to shift their perspective or to provide them additional information to change their opinion. Type 2, however, is interesting. Since they don't have a strong intellectual opinion on the issue, but they do display strong emotion, you can be pretty sure that their resistance is rooted in how they feel about you. Yes, it's personal. Or someone else that they believe is associated with the issue. So you got to spend time building rapport, making a meaningful connection. You got to clear the air about any past issues. You got to spend time building the relationship, perhaps. Get to know their passion hobbies. Get to try to discover and connect on shared interests and build trust and comfort. A very powerful technique is to identify a key strength of theirs. Maybe it's solving problems or being critical or developing PowerPoint presentations or coming up with ideas, creativity. Identify a key strength of theirs and get their help to solve an unrelated problem. Hey, listen, I was thinking of you. I really need your help with this. It involves a lot of creativity, and you're one of the most creative people I know. Would you mind taking a few minutes and just helping me think through this? I'd really appreciate your help. They will be so complimented. They will feel so good about you reaching out to them, and they will love to use one of their strengths to help solve a problem, and it'll create a bond. So it's kind of a hack or a shortcut to developing more of a relationship, thus to move them down into type 1, the opportunity box. Type 3 takes a different approach. This is purely an intellectual challenge. In their eyes, your proposal conflicts with a deeply held belief they cherish. And they won't let go easily, but with compelling evidence from credible sources, they can be persuaded. So, it might take one or more attempts from credible sources to change their premise or their assumptions and move them to the opportunity box, but that's what you got to do. So, bring in another expert. Bring in someone from another department. Show them it's not just your view. Present evidence. They need evidence. They don't want to hear your opinion. They want facts. Type 4 is the greatest challenge of all. They have a very strong opinion on the issue, and it conflicts with your proposal, and they have a great deal of emotion, adding fuel to their resistance. What we want to do here is move them down. We want to get rid of the emotion, then then they become type 3, then move them over to type 1. So their strong emotion is intellectual. They have a strong emotional conviction to their opposing beliefs. They mistrust the merits of your proposal, not you personally. That's the difference between type 4 and type 2. So you want to stay in touch at intervals and gradually present evidence from a variety of credible sources to begin convincing them and easing their fears. And here's the key: start with the most emotional arguments first. So bring in an expert to offer a different view. Bring in someone from another department to reinforce your view. Present research and proof to create doubt in their certainty. See, belief or certainty is like a table, and it's held up by legs. Beliefs are held up by references. I believe this, and I believe it because boom, boom, boom. So here's a belief. This goes against everything we believe in. Plus, these change initiatives always backfire. So there's a belief the person in type 4 has. Now, what are their references? Because we believe in customer service, and change initiatives always backfire, and here's some research to prove it. So what do? What's the strategy? Well, you got to kick the legs out from under the table to create doubt. When you create doubt, they become receptive, and they move into type 1, the opportunity box. So we believe in customer service. Maybe you need to show them how this will actually improve service, and here's how. Change initiatives always backfire. You have a great point. They often do. Here's one that didn't. Remember 2 years ago, we did this. It sounds like our objective is to make sure that we use that approach for this one. And then when it comes to research, you might be able to show, for example, that the research they refer to had a poor study design. They didn't know that. Show them, create doubt. You kick the legs out from under the table, and the belief wobbles. The belief falls. And now they're open. So, what we're doing here overall as a strategy is deal with emotion first. Turn type 2 into type 1, turn type 4 into type 3, and then 3s into 1s. So, the 2-step, which I share in a lot of different content in my podcasts, in my videos. Step 1, always manage the person. In this case, it's their emotions. Step 2, manage the issue. Don't get those steps mixed up, or it gets really difficult to gain agreement. Then comes action. Now, once they've agreed with the merits of the validity of your proposal, you ask for action to gain momentum and get things moving. And it also seals the commitment. Here's an example. So back to our original examples. It's usually not a problem. Good point, it's usually not. But those times when it is a problem, it sure creates a lot of extra cost and work, doesn't it? Well, that's true. Well then, when would be a good time this week for us to meet and talk about a plan of action? So set a time. See, nothing moves forward without a next step and a timestamp. Nothing moves forward without a clear next step and a timestamp. Here's another example. I don't think we need this. Yeah, I thought the same thing. Then I saw what our competitors are doing and I realized we're behind. That's not good. Exactly my thought. So if we were to get together and figure out our next steps, who would you see us involving in addition to yourself? So see, again, that's asking for another action, asking for another commitment. They won't buy in. You could very well be right. Sounds like our objective then is to create a compelling case. We would definitely need that. I wonder if it would make sense for us to schedule a meeting then to go over our thoughts together. What do you think? When's good for you? Earlier or later in the week? So we have 4 steps: agree, assess, assure, action. And remember, action is key. A lot of people I teach this, they forget that last step. They understand agree, they understand assure, and that's about as far as they go. In fact, if I were to think about what most people do, they only do assure. A few people know enough to start with agreement. Assessing is another story. You got to add in the assessment to know how to handle them. And then when you assure, you'll assure the right way. But the last thing you got to end with is ask for an action to get things moving and to seal their commitment. It is key. So let's look at it all as a flowchart. So an objection is expressed. Maybe it's unclear. So you inquire, ask questions, and their objection is expressed some more, and now it's clear and understood. Then you agree or acknowledge some aspect of what they've said to disarm them. Then you start assessing. When you assess, you may find they're type 1. So you assure by simply stating your counterpoint to persuade them because they're in the opportunity box. Then ask for action. If you assess and they're type 2, assure by building trust and building the relationship. Then moving them to the opportunity box, stating your counterpoint to persuade and asking for action. If they're type 3, assure by providing facts from multiple credible sources to the opportunity box, ask for action. Type 4, assure by providing facts from multiple sources and starting with the most emotional issues, moving them down to type 3 and then to the left to type 1, then state your counterpoint and persuade and ask for action. Well, that's a quick way, a quick 4-step to help you deal with objections and win people's agreement. I'd help a lot of companies. I'd love to help yours. If you need my help, if you want to learn more, try going to thefinnamoregroup.com or email me and maybe I can help you. It'd be my pleasure to talk to you. Have a great day and thanks for listening. Please share this with others if you liked it.